from Rixie. This is Debuff, and I'm your host, Steve Skeels. Today I'll be talking about System Shock 3, the Outriders news broadcast, and G2A. So first I want to talk about the Chinese conglomerate Tencent apparently working on System Shock 3. For anyone who doesn't know, the System Shock franchise is basically the predecessor to games like BioShock and Deus Ex. The rights to System Shock are currently owned by Night Dive Studios and were licensed to Otherside Entertainment in order to make System Shock 3, which was announced back in 2015. But on May 20th, Otherside Entertainment posted a news update that the Chinese company Tencent will be, quote, taking the System Shock franchise forward, end quote. What is a little unclear is exactly what this means. The post could be interpreted as Tencent acquiring the rights to System Shock, since they are implying the whole franchise would be taken over. But Night Dive Studios CEO Stephen Kick tweeted that his company still owns the franchise and property. He likely wanted to make this statement because Night Dive has been developing a remake of the original System Shock as well, which has been scheduled to release this year. I'm sure he doesn't want any false information spreading that they are making games they don't have any right to. So I would assume that Tencent taking over is more like Otherside passing the torch to them for System Shock 3 alone. Tencent has been getting a good amount of coverage in the media recently as they continue to purchase small to large percentages of gaming companies, including Epic, Activision Blizzard, Ubisoft, Platinum, and Riot. Opinions on this range from seemingly indifferent to what I think was anger. People are a bit afraid of Tencent's investments and how they may put some stipulations on the companies to follow requirements. Unfortunately, we know China can be pretty infamous for their censorship, and nobody wants to see that happen to beloved franchises. However, I feel like this won't be an issue most of the time, and I'm happy to see that their involvement might help out some games like System Shock 3, which had been having some issues with development. So hopefully the rest of its development goes smoothly, and this is all for the best. Outriders is an upcoming Destiny-esque third-person shooter developed by People Can Fly and published by Square Enix. I think this game looks really cool, and from what I've heard people say of the early demos, it plays really well too. There are multiple classes which have different powers to use, and as I understand it, you're encouraged to use them often. They're not superpowers, they're just abilities you have, and you need to watch that cooldown so you can execute these moves as soon as possible. And then of course there's loot for your character and some RPG elements like pretty sizable skill trees for each class. So far there hasn't been a lot shown off on the game other than these limited gameplay demos that some people in the media were invited to check out, but Square Enix just announced that the Outriders Broadcast will be a monthly show which will give information and footage prior to release. The first episode of this will air on May 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on both YouTube and Twitch. The episode will go into some new gameplay elements, areas, new powers, and a close look at the classes. The monthly broadcast apparently comes from the current pandemic situation and is their way to show more information about the game due to cancellation of events like E3. People Can Fly's creative directors said that they are adapting as best they can and are still working hard on the game, keeping on track for their holiday release. Additional Outriders broadcasts will go into more detail, highlighting the game setting and more features as the development progresses. Again, Outriders is set for a holiday release and will launch on PC, PS4 and 5, Xbox One, and Series X. You can go watch the trailer for the first broadcast now to see what you might expect. Last up, let's talk about G2A. So, G2A is a pretty famous, or rather infamous at this point. If you have ever looked for a deal, especially for PC games, I'm sure it needs no introduction. But as always, a little background helps. So G2A is basically a platform for key resellers to put up game codes, and they usually do so for very cheap. To date, G2A has had millions of customers and thousands of sellers. Unfortunately, you don't always know where the key you're buying came from, meaning they might be stolen or bought with stolen credit cards. When you see a code for the brand new Pokemon game at 30% off the week it came out, that should seem a bit sketchy. Personally, I've seen many posts online about people buying a game code through G2A only for it to be removed from their account due to a chargeback claim or similar, and at least on the Switch, I know people have gotten temporary bans for this. Game developers have straight up called for people to pirate their games over buying from G2A, since any chargeback claim means the only ones who end up with money is G2A and the resellers who basically sold nothing and profited. Well, almost a year ago, G2A offered to open up to an independent auditor and pay back 10 times the amount if there were any keys obtained fraudulently and sold on their marketplace. They were taken up by that by one game developer, Woob Software, the developers of Factorio. G2A ended up doing the audit themselves, but they identified 198 of Woob's keys that were illegitimately sold on their platform. They paid out the $39,600 to Woob Software, but have taken almost no blame for themselves, other than admitting that they may have taken too long to try and do anything about what they call a small number of individuals. While I get that it isn't everyone, it sounds like a crapshoot to buy codes on G2A. I mean, Factorio is pretty popular, but it's not a huge game by any means. If they had 198 bad keys sold on G2A, then I can't imagine what some more popular games might be facing. Either way, they did say that they plan to compensate any developer that can prove keys were sold illegitimately on their marketplace, which is fair, but I'd like to see them put in more preventative measures to stop this, or at least talk about what they're doing behind the scenes to stop it. But I'm sure it's only a matter of time before it gets to that point, especially if some bigger developers can prove that they've had stolen keys sold there. But for now, G2A doesn't seem to be changing. Debuff is hosted by me, Steve Skeels, edited and mixed by Mason Carlton. Follow us on Instagram at DebuffPod. That's Debuff, P-O-D. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.